sloper pattern. Then we're going to start playing around with fits that are not body conscious at all. We're going to start doing added fullness. Everything we've done so far has fit very, very closely to the body. Now it's time to play around with not close to the body. Come take a look at these sketches right here. This book, in its pieces, lives up there. And a lot of the projects that you've done already have some origin in this book. And all the projects you're going to do from here on out, their origins are in this book. And so I'm going to show you illustrations. If you want to make copies of the illustrations for your PowerPoint, you're welcome to. This is actually the book that I purchased in 1984 when I took this class. And so it's actually kind of fascinating to look at these very, because of course since I bought it in 1984, it probably had been updated last in 1977. And so all of these images are very, very ridiculous, from the 1970s. But the thing that I really like about this book that I think is very, very helpful is that it's essentially a menu. So for example, one of the things we're going to use this for later is sleeves. And so it just gives you, maybe a better way to describe it is a cookbook. It shows you a picture and then says, this is how to do it. Here's the picture, this is how to do it. So you get a recipe for everything. The words are ridiculously confusing, so I almost never read the words, and I encourage you to only read the words as a last resort. But looking at the pictures to be able to see what's going on, I think is far more helpful. And I think it's helpful also for you guys because it helps continue to build those pathways about two-dimensional versus three-dimensional, negative versus positive space. I don't think there's a one of the things in these books that actually look like the drawings here, but such is life. But so today we're going to talk about added fullness. The first thing I want to do is I want to point you guys towards this figure right here. Does this look familiar to you guys at all?
It looks a bit like Kristen's dart manipulation sloper.
It looks exactly like Kristen's dart manipulation sloper, doesn't it? How did they generate this particular piece of clothing?
It's a pleat.
Well, it's a single dart, where that single dart is just eased in instead of darted, pleated, anything else. So this is your absolute basic fundamental for fullness. Now I want you to take a look over here at this illustration. The thing that's interesting about this illustration is this gal in the background, she's wearing a two-dart sloper on her torso. She's actually also wearing a sleeve sloper and a skirt sloper. And what they've then done in the illustration is each one of these slopers has been adapted in some way to become something else. One of the things we've been playing around with, we've talked a lot about slashing and spreading versus slashing and closing. All your darts, your pleats, your dart manipulations, those are all versions of slashing and closing, correct? Have we done any slashing and spreading with your actual garment yet?
No.
No, the only place we've done any slashing and spreading is in this clipping in the seam allowances. So now it's time to play around with the slashing and spreading in the actual body of the garment. Take a look at this illustration right here. Catherine, I'm going to turn it upside down. I think you'll still be able to see what I'm seeing. Look at the way that they've drawn this illustration. You can see right here that the gray represents the positive space. It represents the original pattern piece. And the white represents slashing and spreading, the fullness that's been added into the piece. There are three types of added fullness that you're going to play around with. The first one is illustrated very easily here. This is what's called equal fullness. So you can see in this rectangle, And this rectangle pretty much represents this skirt right here. What they've done is they've slashed and spread, and whatever they added in at the waist, they also added in at the hem. Everybody see that?
What's it called? Even?
It's called equal fullness. It's written right there. You can see, if you flip back over to this side of the illustration, they've essentially done equal fullness all the way up this thing. So now we're seeing the same amount of fullness here that we are right there. Does that make sense? Take a look at the next illustration down. Version 2 is called one-sided fullness. What's the difference between what you see here and here, Connie?
The one at the top is closer together, while the one at the bottom is more spread out, and then the other one is just everything's all equal.
Connie said the one at the top is closer together while all of these are spread out. There's something else I want to make sure that we notice about this. Has anything been added into the top?
No.
So let's go back to our original rectangle for a minute. Let's say that this was a rectangle that was 12 by 10, and then it became 14 or 16 by 10, right? This is the same 12 by 10 rectangle. It still is 12 inches across the top here, isn't it? So it hasn't grown at all in the waist, but now it's 16 down at the bottom, isn't it? So this is what makes it one-sided fullness. This should look very familiar to you because this is really similar to the dart manipulations that you've been doing, where what you would do is you would slash to 1/8 of an inch away from that edge and just open the whole thing up. At the top, nothing has changed because it's all still a single unit, right? It hasn't been chopped apart. All of the change has happened down here. Last but not least, take a look at this one right here. This one is what's referred to as unequal fullness. So this one is a hybrid of both of these together. The difference is that yes, some has been added into the top and to the bottom, much like this, but what is the difference?
More on the bottom?
That more has been added into the bottom than it is in the top. There's probably twice as much. So that's why it's called unequal. So going back to these illustrations for a minute, take a look here. Where do you see equal fullness in this illustration after the slopers have been manipulated?
Her bodice.
Her torso is equal fullness, isn't it? That right there. You can see that the fit is still pretty cylindrical. The only difference is now it has ease both across the waist and around the bust. Where do you see one-sided fullness?
The sleeves?
The sleeves,
Ooh.
absolutely. Take a look. You see nothing, there's no gathering or pleating or any kind of contouring in the armhole, but then you get all of this excess around the edge. And then where do you see unequal fullness? Her skirt. Right? Connie, do you see those things? Mm-hmm. Great. So, for a minute, I felt like it feels to me like we're looking at a highlights magazine. You know,
Yeah.
where do you see the difference between this picture and that picture? So, guess what you're going to do today? Guess what your other homework is going to be? To take your princess seam sloper, once you've made the pattern, and to start experimenting. Your princess seam sloper has 4 individual pieces, right? A center front, a side back, and a center back. You are going to manipulate one of them so that it has equal fullness. You're going to manipulate one of them so that it has unequal full or one-sided fullness. And you're going to manipulate one of them so that it has unequal fullness.
So there's going to be a princess seam, but it's also going to have fullness.
You are correct.
That's weird.
It's going to be weird. This is a weird project. So let's talk about.
But we have 4 pieces.
So one of the pieces is going to remain unchanged.
Okay.
So now it's time to talk about how you're going to do it.
When is gonna remain unchanged. We'll do all three on one of each.
Yeah, I mean, the truth is, you could try and do all of them on one piece. That would be a total mess. Your pattern shape is going to be so weird, and it's going to be so difficult to sew.
So we're gonna sew it together?
You are.
It's only week 4.
It's true. You're graduating. This is a big project, and so if you see, you have a work session on Wednesday as well. And then we need to see what's due. I can't remember what's due on Friday and what's due on Monday, whether the whole thing is due on Friday or only part of it is due on Friday. So let's talk about how to physically do this. I would like, let's get all the supplies we need to be able to do, to copy a pattern and then start dissecting it. Who wants to volunteer a pattern piece?
Here it is.
All right, great. So we need brown paper, we need colored pencils, number 2 pencils,
Wait.
tape, paper, scissors,
Oh.
curve.
That's what you're about.
I need brown paper pattern.
Oh, brown paper pattern
Brown paper pattern.
of my princess scene?
No, because it doesn't exist yet, so some
Okay.
other brown paper pattern.
That's what I was curious about.
Where were you coming from?
I'm
Yeah, oh, you do?
yeah,
Yeah, because I was stuck in that too.
yeah. It's
Um,
like the 3-car collision.
Where were you?
Me?
Yeah,
I was in the left lane, so I was in the
you were
slowest
totally
lane.
stuck.
Yeah.
Dart, no dart.
And yeah, but I come from almost close to Cherry Creek Mall.
Oh,
where
yeah.
Colorado Boulevard is.
Yeah, you and I come the exact same path.
Hi.
That's why I try to take the bus. Doesn't matter, any pattern piece at all.
Well, I'm gonna give you the ones that didn't mess up.
Je ne care pas.